happy Friday, the 13th. Somebody's getting killed today. It's House Divided on Orange Bloods Live. I'm Jeff Ketchum. That is, it won't be a punter. It's Chad Hastings over here to my right. I don't know if that's actually technically. It's weird. Yeah, you're to my right. I'm not going to get lost in the weeds today. I'm sorry, Chad. I want to somewhere next to me, either to the left or to the right, is Chad Hastings, depending on your vantage point. Like, comment, subscribe to the page, jump in the chat. Tracy, we know that we owe you a super chat. Anwar Richardson has let us know that he cheated you earlier today.
Mm-hmm. And Tracy even told us, Catch, he likes us enough, he's going to send an additional super chat. I told him he didn't have to. He says he likes us.
I do not want him to feel obligated.
I told him the same thing. He says he likes us enough. So as soon as I see it, Tracy, we'll throw it in.
So, if you're going to go ahead and do it, then send $500. I think that's the max.
Yes. Yes. Nice guy super chats are going for 500 bones apiece.
Oh, there's a lot of stuff to get into today as we get ready to go into our first Saturday in a long time where we don't have just widespread football all over the place. It means that we've been able to focus on the portal as we get ready for, hey, we'll be talking a lot of football next week. There's some good games, and Texas will be in one of them. For all of the whatever Texas and Clemson isn't, that is the second toughest team that Texas will have played this season.
Yeah.
After you get beyond Georgia, there's a whole lot of, is it Texas A&M? Is it the version of Florida that Texas played? Is it Vanderbilt? No, it'll be Clemson. So there's a big football game discussion, I think, to have over the course of the next 8 days. We'll definitely do a lot of that. But, Chad,
yes,
do we have the heavy metal portal intro ready to go?
You know what we have for you, Catch? Our man Blake, the super producer, saw your criticism of the portal combat. It
was just an opinion.
Hey, you're not a metalhead. That's understandable. So he's given you two options. Are you ready?
Oh, yes, I'm ready.
Here's option number one.
Get over here!
Yeah. I dig that one because it kind of goes from Weird Kazoo to Willie Nelson at the end. I really enjoy it. That's option one.
What could be better than that?
Here's option two. It is the season of giving. It is the season of getting great gifts, and teams are hoping they get great gifts. So you have either one of those options as the portal combat intro.
Oh, God. I'm feeling so poor today, and yet I am deliriously happy after that. Blake, you have no idea how happy that made me.
Well done, Blake.
That may have been facetious, and he may have been, like, oh, yeah, Catch? You don't like the heavy metal football? Well, how about this? I loved them. They're adorable. And that leads us into the portal discussion today. And Chad, the Longhorns have made their first portal edition of this class, and he's good, man. This is you don't want to overcook the grits, because if there's anything that we've learned this season is that bad punting won't cost you in the playoff race potentially. For as much as we've talked about punting for months, you can't look at a single game that Texas has played this season and say that the outcome was decided by the punting. That doesn't mean that it can't happen. It just means that we can both be right a little bit, Chad, that you and I worried about the punting all year long. And the Longhorns have one of the worst punting set of numbers in college football.
Yeah, keeps getting worse. It's at 126 going into the Clemson game.
So it can be better.
It can be better. And you know what, Catch? Here's the other lesson in this. Patience pays off. You told Texas to pay attention to punter in the portal. It took them a year to hear you, but they finally heard you.
This is what Texas
took a year.
Be doing. Texas should never take a high school punter. They just shouldn't. Why would you ever take a chance? Just go poach someone like Utah punter Jack Bowmeister, who is a former first team All Pac-12 performer and this year a second team All Big 12 performer. Like, he's good. He's good. He's kicked in a bunch of games. 39. When he comes to Austin next year, and no, before you ask, he cannot participate in the bowl games.
Everybody can he punt tomorrow? No.
But this is, look, it's a savvy move. It is improving your weakest area with somebody who I think would register as a team. This guy will probably go into next season, and he's going to have a real good chance of being first team All SEC in the preseason.
Yeah. Well, there's no doubt. And I mean, there's a lot of ingredients you like. The fact that he's Australian, and we know that there's been a factory of, producing punters from Australia. That's a plus. Utah is a place, Catch, that's produced 3 Ray Guy winners. They had a back-to-back with Hackett. Wisnowski followed that. They went 3 years in a row where they won the Ray Guy Award, even though the special teams coach might be different. The head coach and the coaching staff is the same. So all that's great. And the numbers are pretty impressive here. 44.7 per kick. I like this one, Catch. 23 inside the 20 this year and only 4 touchbacks. Like, let that one sit in your brain a second. If you're a football fan, you know exactly why that's a big deal. So I agree with you. Good move. And yes, if you're a program of Texas's stature, you better damn well know you're getting a stud punter out of high school before you do it. Otherwise, do it this way.
Yeah, and I don't care if he's a stud. Kicking in high school isn't the same as kicking in college. It's wildly different. What coaches are – and look, everybody approaches punting a little bit different at this level. The one thing I would say about Bowmeister is that because he's at Utah, I think there are a few people who are like, well, is this an altitude thing? Is he kicking in Utah? Are the numbers a little bit inflated?
Is that why they had 3 Ray Guy winners? Thin air?
Maybe, but I will say this. I've looked up. I just started a little bit of, I wouldn't say it's a deep dive. Like, I don't know that I'm going to go that far. But I looked at his game at Oklahoma State in Stillwater earlier this year. He had a long of 53, 2 inside the 20, 4 for 169. So it looks like a very effective performance, but it's hard to know, but a long of 53 would seem to indicate that thin air or not, he's pretty good. And then I looked at some dry air. He went to Arizona State earlier this year, only had 1 kick in that game, but it was a punt of 46 yards. So we are already talking about improvement.
Oh, it's got to be. And I mean, a long of 62 on the year is what I'm seeing. That means catch what? In thicker air, maybe it's 58. Okay. Plus, on getting the ball to stop inside the 20, catch that thicker air will stop the ball, right? That's what you want. We want more. There's a lot of thickness. He'll love the humidity. You kidding me? Bring on the humidity.
I'm just letting you know that, this is a guy that absolutely, maybe more so. I don't know how you can find anybody that will improve Texas more from where they've been this season than this guy. So, okay. At Houston earlier this year, he had 7 punts, a long of 54, 2 in that game, went inside the 20. Like, he's capable of booming the ball.
Dude, that's fantastic. All right. That's what you want. That's exactly what you want. And it's a good way to say it too. From when you're sitting at 126 in net punting, there's nothing they may get out of the portal that will improve as much as that one position is going to improve with this dude.
Now, there will be players that they get out of the portal that will be more important for the overall success of this team.
No doubt.
But they just made about as big of an improvement. This is a guy that's been a Ray Guy finalist. He's good. And so you can just never have to worry about that again in 2025. And now we look on for the rest of what Texas does in the portal. I think it's really interesting that earlier this week I had a conversation with a source of mine, and this source specifically brought up Georgia Tech wide receiver Eric Singleton. I didn't. I got my eyes on defensive tackles.
Right.
Although I know that Sark's going to want him a wide receiver at some point. Like you can set your watch by Sark going into the portal. This particular source mentioned that he said, look, Singleton is going for the numbers that Texas apparently has been hearing is like 1.5, $2 million. Wow. It stands to reason. Teams are flush with cash. There's a little bit of a bidding war when you see that the likes of Ole Miss and Auburn are chasing this kid with a sprinkle of Georgia. You're like, okay, well, maybe those numbers are crazy because not like incorrect, just $1.5, $2 million for a really good wide receiver, but not somebody that, he's got a chance to be a high draft pick. The person that I talked to kind of, I don't want to say he poo-pooed him, but he was a little bit like, look, we got a bunch of dudes that we're going to have to pay. And if we pay a guy from Georgia Tech whose numbers aren't as good as Matthew Golden's, like just, it's not apple to apple because one guy's playing with Haynes King and Matthew Golden wasn't. Although Haynes King had a better performance. Never mind. I'm not going to do that today.
Don't do that. That's your door you're about to open. Keep your hand off that hand.
I put my hand. You know what happened? I was, at Home Alone when Kevin has the handle of the door. Like
that was hot doorknob you're about to touch.
I was like, ooh, I can feel the heat. Not going to grab it.
Marv, I'm not grabbing it.
Anwar Richardson reporting earlier this morning that Eric Singleton is scheduled to visit Texas on Monday. I'm fascinated by that because on one hand, look, maybe if you're this kid, going to Texas checks a bunch of boxes, including, what might get Ole Miss to go $2 million instead of $1.5 million? Get Texas involved.
I was going to say, start the bidding war.
Get Texas involved. And then maybe that's how you get that extra $500,000. If you're Texas, there is a sense that Singleton is one of the better players in a watered-down portal. He's one of the better names in the portal. I think Rivals has him at the number 11 ranked player in the portal. 24/7 has him at number 1. So he would be viewed as a difference maker at this point from a portal addition. And if you're Texas, you should at least kick the tires on that. If he's the best player, regardless of position, or if he's in that conversation, it probably makes sense for if you're Texas to get him on campus and, hey, maybe Arch will pick him up at the airport. And Arch will go, we're just looking for a guy just like you. Do you know how much money that you can make if you're catching passes for me? Because I don't know if you've noticed, but like people know who I am. Like maybe that works. Or maybe the kid comes down here and is like, how much are y'all going to pay me? And they're like, well, we can't do 1.5. He's like, cool, man. I had a great time. Nice to meet Arch. Going to go to Ole Miss. I think there's some nuance in that particular situation, but I think it's kind of exciting that Texas is bringing that guy in for a visit. You're kicking the tires. You don't know until you know. I would tell Texas fans, though, maybe don't get overly enthusiastic about that visit, that the numbers are the numbers. It's hard for me to imagine that he would take a huge discount to come to Texas, even if someone made this point on Orange Bloods earlier today. It's like the pitch is forget about immediate gratification. What you want to do is come here for less. But Arch and you playing with Arch is going to create so much success that you'll make that $500,000 or so up on the back end with your draft position. So just don't take the money right now. Said no 19-year-old ever.
Nope. I remember being 19. I don't remember me or anybody else saying, don't take that money.
Said no 48-year-old ever, if I'm being completely honest.
49. Yep. No, that's true. It's all true. If you want to throw us a super chat, we will get into it. So like Ketch said, Eric Singleton scheduled to visit on Monday. Also from Anwar's reporting at orangebloods.com. Check out that war room. Check out all the extra stuff that gets put out at orangebloods.com. Brad Spence,
that one is interesting.
The Arkansas linebacker, and then the guy that I mentioned yesterday, Cole, I'm going Brevard. I'm going to go with the country pronunciation. Cole Brevard, the Purdue D tackle, scheduled to also visit today as we record on a Friday. So those two in on Friday, and then Monday will be Eric Singleton, the Georgia Tech wide receiver. We'll get into all that. We'll talk about all those guys. We will throw your super chats in. Here's the Tracy super chat, Catch, that we needed to get to. This is from earlier, $10. Thank you, Tracy, for the extra $10. Where do you rank Banks on the Texas all-time O-line list? Where do you rank Barron on the all-time DB list? Current roster, who's the next Longhorn to win the Thorpe, Outland, and Lombardi? Hashtag no for 500. That's good. That is good.
Hey, Tracy, just like Texas bringing in Eric Singleton. You don't know if you don't ask.
You got to try. And I guess we should start, Catch, with the big congratulations to both those guys for winning the awards. And the uniqueness of this, Texas fans, Kelvin Banks is the first Texas player to win the Lombardi and the Outland. Nobody else had ever done that. He's the fifth to win the Outland. And I told you yesterday about the other guys that had won the Lombardi. He's only the fourth to do that, but no crossover until this guy, Kelvin Banks. Very singular in that regard.
It's incredible. Really. It is. Tracy, I'm not fully prepared to answer this question, but it has been in my brain. You know, one of the things I've been trying to ask myself is just focus on players from 2000 on. Do I think he's better than all of those guys? And I find myself, forget about the honors, because from an honors standpoint, I think you can make the case with Kelvin Banks. Do I think that Kelvin Banks at his peak is better than Leonard Davis at his peak? I haven't answered that question yet. Leonard Davis was pretty spectacular. He just didn't win all the hardware. But, you know, there's a reason why he was, the third pick in the NFL draft, a Pro Bowler with the Cowboys, but not long-term a left tackle or a tackle. His best football was played inside. I wonder if we go back to the 70s and you start thinking about some of the great linemen that, you know, there's a guy that opened up a sub shop in Austin that was pretty good. You know, it's like if somebody wants to say Jerry Sizemore or
Well, come forward about 20 years. Is he better than like Dan Neal and those dudes?
Look, is either I think we're only talking about tackle. It's if we put together an all-time Texas team, is he the left tackle?
Yeah.
I'm leaning towards yes. But I have to admit I have a little bit of a Leonard Davis. I will not call anybody better than Dan Neal.
Yeah.
So
I can agree.
I don't know if that's fair. I don't know if I've romanticized the Dan Neal career to such an extent that it's like, I won't put anybody over. Oh. Now, let's talk about Jahdae Barron for a second. I think Barron just had the best season of any defensive back that Texas has ever had. I think this season by Barron is better than the season that Aaron Ross had in 2006. And he was pretty incredible. For a while, it felt like Aaron Ross just made a game-changing turnover every week. I definitely think he had a better year than Michael Huff in the 2005 season. And Huff had a great season. But when you look at Huff, who worked more of a nickel position, and you look at Aaron Ross, I think Barron was that good. And I think what's so interesting about this is I thought Jahdae Barron last year was pretty average. What's crazy about what he's done this year in moving away from the slot to outside, which I feel like I want to give a congratulations, Chad, to the Texas coaching staff for making that move. But I also want to ask why it took so long, because they were brutal last year in pass defense, and it turns out they had the best DB in the country. Just playing the wrong position.
Right. And you were the guy that pointed out as we were getting ready for SEC Media Days, if they're bringing this dude, it probably doesn't mean that there's, spot action going to happen. He's probably not just some guy you move around a lot, that you felt like that was going to be a focus of theirs, and it was, and it pays off big time.
In his career, in the first 43, because keep in mind, he was a senior last year. He came back for a second senior season, not because he wasn't going to be a first-round draft pick. Come on. It was because he didn't have a good enough year to slingshot him. Think about all of the guys that did go pro last year. Basically, one of the only guys who didn't go pro, you had Alfred Collins and you had Jahdae Barron. And Barron was a guy who's, I don't know where he would have got drafted, but his draft stock was such that they weren't going to risk it. In the first 43 games of his career, Chad, either 41 or 43, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, 3 interceptions, 16 pass breakups in 41 or 43 games. I forget which one it is. This season, in 13 games, he has 5 picks and 14 pass breakups. So when people are like, oh, Catch, he was always great. You're wrong. He was awesome last year. Nothing should be put in the same sentence with this season. He did more in 13 games than he did in 40-plus games in the first 4 seasons of his career. He only came back this season because he had the COVID year. The COVID year is the only reason why this happens, because he came in 2020, played 5 games as a true freshman, which took that red shirt away from him, plays 2021. 2022, he had an excellent season. 2023, he didn't, man, the world just looks incredibly different for Jahdae Barron without the COVID year. And I will not say that I was wrong about my commentary about him last year. I feel like the numbers tell a story. He had 1 interception and 7 pass breakups and really on a terrible pass defense, really wasn't a standout. This year, he was incredible. And I think, we got to be able to have these conversations where when guys don't play well or are just okay, I think, because I wouldn't say that Jahdae didn't play well. I would just say, like, he was no star. He wasn't a standout. This year, I've never seen, in all my years of covering Texas football, there may be a few guys that have had equal seasons, but I've never seen anybody have a better season at corner than Jahdae Barron had this year. And I'm really excited for him, man. He came, this scenario won't possibly ever happen again. I love the fact that the whole damn secondary is basically from Austin, so that you've got a 5-1-2 secondary of Makuba and Taff, and now the Thorpe Award winner and Barron. There's a lot of really cool things about this. And I just think and what's funny is Michael Simpson asked this, and Tracy, I'll go back to you. I have not seen, hold on. That wasn't what I was trying to click on. It was, did Barron push himself into day one conversation? Michael, I hope so. I don't know if he's viewed that way. I've not seen a mock draft. There have been, look, and we know that mock drafts are mock drafts, right? I mean, the ones in December, you can wipe your butt with them in February, let alone April. But he's not being talked about in that vein yet. But let's hope so. If there are better corners out there than Jahdae Barron going to the NFL, I just want to see the list. Show me the list, because I didn't see that list this year. He was, for me, the best corner. We got to a point with Barron this year where if he gave up a 10-yard reception once in a game, it was like, whoa, somebody completed a pass on Barron. And, he was sensational. I felt like, as critical as I was of him going into the season, can't say enough good things about what he did this year.
All right, tell me where to go here, Catch. Back to that super chat about who's the next one to win the Thorpe and other awards, or somebody that wants you to give Earl Thomas some love. Which way do we go?
Well, Earl Thomas is a safety. Yeah, I'm like talking about corners.
Yeah, Jay, we'll get to your $5 super chat here. Absurd. Statistically, Thomas had a better sophomore year than Barron's career stats.
I'm talking about corners.
Yeah.
I mean,
Simple as
Earl
that.
Thomas probably, you can make a case that Earl Thomas is the best defensive player, even over Derek Johnson, that we've ever seen in a Texas uniform. He was that good.
Yeah.
And he was incredible in 2000. You can make a case that Earl Thomas should have won the Heisman in 2009. He's a better player than Mark Ingram, and he had a much better year than Colt McCoy did in 2009, but he's a safety.
I guess the crossing of discussions might be the two guys that won it were Huff and Ross.
But Huff was a nickel guy primarily, and Ross was an outside corner.
Right. So I guess that is part of the confusion. I think Huff confuses it because he wasn't strictly a corner. So maybe that's how Jay got the conversation.
That's fine. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, believe me, much respect to Earl Thomas. Just like when we were talking about Kelvin Banks and Chad threw the Dan Neal discussion at me, I'm trying to keep it in the discussion with him on offensive tackles, specifically left tackle. Yeah. When I think of Barron, I'm only thinking of the corners. In my head, I was thinking about Vasher and Babers and Quentin Jammer. And, there's a huge, long list. Barron mentioned Quandre Diggs last night.
That was cool.
A number of guys. Shout out to Quandre, by the way, if he's watching the show today. We got to get you on soon. If we're making an all-time Texas team, Banks is probably the left tackle. I don't know what I'd do with Barron. He had the best season.
Right.
Is he the best player? I don't know. I need more time to think about it. As far as guys on campus that could possibly do it, how about Jonah Williams coming in? And if we're talking about offensive linemen, I don't think there is one.
Hell, Outland and Lombardi.
Maybe Gooseby. Gooseby would be maybe the best candidate.
I think Justice Terry is probably the most logical guy because you can be defensive. Outland and Lombardi. Throw Justice Terry in there. And then what about Thorpe? Is Kobe Black that kind of dude?
Well, I said Jonah Williams. Kobe Black, maybe. It's a little soon for me to say that.
Yeah. Tracy, we appreciate the super chat. We appreciate 800 of you in that Specs chat. Got a couple of super chats we will get to. Also, today, throughout the show, we're going into an off weekend, right? Army, Navy, America is playing football. But outside of that, your Saturday's kind of open. We will show you some ideas today of what you may want to do, like go drink some vodka at Deep Eddy Vodka out at the tasting room. Always such a good time, especially this time of year when the weather is cooler. Get on out there, have one of these great cocktails, or maybe two or three. Have yourself a tasting if you like. That's always fun. You'll get some education on the vodka. I was surprised to find out about the first vodka they made, the flavor that's the most popular. I was a little surprised there. Thursday through Sunday, it's Friday at 12:28 by my watch, which means they're ready to go out at the Deep Eddy Vodka tasting room. Make sure you have some of that barbecue too from Crimson Creek Smokehouse. It is awesome. Deep Eddy Vodka tasting room. Go see them as soon as possible. All right. Quick super chat from our man S. Roan, $5. Keep it heavy metal. S. Roan, we're going to try the other stuff on the Portal Combat. Look, it's all about creating that smile. Did you see the little kid appear in
the holiday one until we're through the holidays?
It was great. I think the holiday one will fit for a while. And then
as soon as we're beyond the 25th, Chad.
What's that?
As soon as Christmas is gone, once you turn another year older, then we may rotate them around. Who knows, man? Blake might be inspired and
Blake
create another one.
Blake just pushed a little too hard into the metal world for catch. He got greedy, and all of us metal fans are going to pay for it. But what are you going to do? That happens sometimes. S-Rone, thank you for that super chat. How about one from our man Oscar, $4.99. I know y'all want to stand on the soapbox, but field goal kicking is a much bigger issue. Aside from aesthetics, punting never really cost us, luckily.
See, you're pushing Oscar. If the punting game fucks off that Clemson game, I'm going to remember your $4.99 super chat. And I'm going to blame it on you testing the fate of the football gods. Oscar, I think you're not wrong, though. And I expect them to go get a field goal kicker before it's all said and done. Yeah. You got to walk before you can run. And before you can have 2 or 3 or 4 portal additions, you have to have one. Yeah, there's still a lot of time left in the portal. And I think that there's one of the things that we can't see right now, what happens to the playoff teams when this is over with, that there are 12 teams whose players technically don't have to announce until 5 days after their season ends. What schools will have changeover at the coaching position? Think about how crazy it got last year. It wasn't because of coaching jobs that had changed by the 13th of December. It was everything that just kept happening. And once there's one big one, then the trickle down just continues. Think about Alabama loses Saban, but then DeBoer leaves to go. There was a constant chain reaction.
And that catch, I'll still keep saying, I know you disagreed with me when I said it earlier in the week. I think that element might make that portal a truly unique experience, because you had the setup of Jimbo, Walter Nolan, Evan Stewart. Then you had Saban, greatest of all time, big badass, and all those little dominoes. So that means Bond was because of it. That means the guy at Washington was because of it. Everything that came from Arizona was because of it. And I just don't know if we're going to see that every portal cycle.
No, that's probably
right?
fair. Like you're not going to have the Alabama job open. I mean,
because here's the other thing Texas has to figure out, to Eric Singleton. To me, Eric Singleton might be at the talent level of, say, where, I don't know, Nick Scorton was in last year's portal, or even below that. Because, the Walter Nolans and the Stewarts and the Isaiah Bonds, I don't think they're going to move every year.
Well, and the thing that's different about this year that I think might make this year in a vacuum the most abnormal of what will eventually be normal is that last year, there were probably 10 programs across America that were really willing to do what it took to get the best players in the portal. This year, basically every, just think about the schools in the power conferences and the Power Four. They're all going to have different rules with, I think, like, it's still a work in progress, but we know that the number is basically going to be 20 million-ish. That's Texas. That's basically what Texas spent this year in NIL, and Texas dwarfed so many teams. This upcoming year, the teams that will dwarf the other teams will spend 40 million, but everybody's going to spend 20. And if you haven't spent 20, or you haven't spent half that, you're probably not one of those programs that's going to spend that money on 5-star prospects. So you have nothing but money to keep your own guys. And I think that is, next year, all of these programs, most of them will have maxed out their credit cards. But right now, they've got a brand new credit card with a real high spending limit on it, and they got to go spend it. So I do think we're going to see fewer players this year enter the portal because they will find the money that they're looking for internally. And they'll probably find the most amount of money internally because schools don't want to lose their players. I was reading an article online. I was reading ESPN.com, and our guy, Max Olson, had an article out. He was talking about Arizona. And it was like, when the bleeding starts and it starts to get out of control, it makes it feel like your program is done. And, you look at Arizona and they've lost Jacob Manu and they've lost Acario Davis and they've lost a safety. And then the numbers just start piling up. And it's like, well, you couldn't keep your best players. What's wrong? You look at Oklahoma right now. And I think this is the scary thing for Oklahoma. They're losing good players. I don't know if the portal is going to have the volume of good players in it for Oklahoma to feel like they came out ahead in this thing. And considering the volume that they've got, and it's such a big year, I don't even know that it's about spending money. I wonder if the talent is available in order for Oklahoma to, again, come out of the other side of this just in the 2025 season. I think this is a bad year to have a cleansing of the roster. And Oklahoma's, I think, near 20 so far. That's a big number that they'll need to sign between 15 and 20 guys in the portal. And I don't know that they're shopping at Saks as it is. They're kind of shopping at Kmart.
And they may be spending Saks kind of money.
And what can your expectations be if what you bring in through the portal is kind of a grab bag of, well, we did the best we could. That is not the same as like we kicked ass.
And fan bases will be upset if they feel like you got lesser talent and you overpaid. And that may be what we end up seeing, right? If this portal is going to produce overall a little bit less talent maybe than last year, but you're right, Catch, about the pile of money everybody's got, then so many programs, and maybe everybody does, but so many programs are going to be overspending for guys that when they hit the field, the fans will be like, wait a minute. The report is we spent that much for him?
Well, because other schools are going to do what Texas has already done. Most of the money that Texas has spent from an NIL standpoint, let's just say in the last 12 months, has been on retaining their own players. I mean, yes, it does include recruiting, and there's millions in that, but it's not like 10 million. It's probably not even 5 million. It might, maybe for a top 5 class, like maybe you're kind of in that neighborhood, but I don't even know that I would go that high. Most of the money has been on, got to keep Kelvin Banks happy. Got to go into the portal and get a guy like Isaiah Bond and keep him happy. I think what's kind of amazing is that I don't know if those NIL numbers include Arch or Quinn. Because Quinn's got his own agent, his own people, his own companies. He does not need Texas fishing for NIL deals for him. And Arch, I don't know, is like technically signed an NIL deal that has paid him any money. That what we had heard from sources close to the situation was that he wanted to be a starting quarterback before he started to take NIL deals because of the potential problematic nature of him being him, but being a backup, but maybe being the most highly paid player in the country. So and look, you had to come from a pretty affluent background to be like, yeah, no, I could have made $3 million this year, but I'll probably get that down the road.
Oof, that kind of patience. Yeah, it takes money on the front side for that family to have that kind of patience. Let's clean up a couple super chats here real quick, Catch. Oscar, before we leave yours, back to your punting comment. I know you meant it in kind of a snarky way. Think about Texas, Georgia, the first one. In Austin, Georgia had an elite punter. Texas didn't. Go back and watch from 0-0 to 23-0. You tell me where on the field that game occurred and why. And that was at your house. So I know people love to joke about punters, but don't. Get a badass one if you can. And Texas just did. AR for $2. Who do you think wears number 7 next year on defense? I kind of like this question, Catch, because the notion of like Barron taking the Huff number and then going and getting the Thorpe. Texas has never really had one of these on the outside. We know there was 60. There was that discussion about Nobis and Brian Jones and stuff like that. But maybe this is the thing now? Like the badass wears number 7 for the Texas DBs.
Maybe. We'll have to see. Like I don't have a numbers are so weird, man. The reason why guys pick numbers is often so weirdly personal that you might say, well, maybe I tend to think that it will go to a badass incoming recruit, but
maybe Jonah,
maybe they sign a guy in the portal, or maybe, you know what I mean? Like I think,
and for Barron, correct me if I'm wrong, Barron did take 7 because of Huff, right? He wanted to do it as like a tribute to Huff.
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah. And he made it look badass too.
Yeah.
7 in the defensive backfield does look pretty badass.
But you know what made him look even more badass than his number? Him being a badass like that.
Right. That helps.
When you suck, it doesn't matter what your number is.
That's true. He could have worn 62 this year and still looked incredible.
Trust me, if he'd been playing corner in the last year and the defense at the back end was still as bad as it was, nobody would have been saying 7 looks awesome. Like it's amazing what we think looks awesome once something looks awesome.
That's fair. That's a good point.
Be walking around with a pink mohawk, Chad, which would look awesome. But when you win, you get to write the narrative and the rules.
It's true.
When you lose, you suck. And everything about you sucks.
It's true. Shout out to over 900 of you now in the Specs chat. House divided on a Friday. We're talking plenty of portal stuff. We've already talked some portal visitors. We'll continue that discussion. Let's give Specs a little love. Off weekend for you. Might be a good time to get stocked up.
No matter what you're needing, Specs same-day delivery can save the day with our Specs app or online shopping. From world-class wines to hard-to-find spirits and craft beers to gourmet foods, delicious snacks, and spectacular sweets. It's Specs.
Catch, unless you had something else, I want to get your thoughts on a couple of pass catchers in the portal, if that's all right. So yesterday when you weren't on, I talked about Max Clare, the tight end from Purdue that has visited Texas. Give me your thoughts on him, and do you think that would be a really good move for Texas to make him the guy?
I think it would be an excellent move. If you think about projecting him forward this year from last year, he's a very productive player at Purdue, just as productive in a lot of ways as Gunnar Helm was this year. He just did it on a bad team. You look at the Texas tight end situation, you lose Juan Davis, which I never thought would be a thing we would say on the show. You lose Helm. You're going to bring back Amari Niblack, we think, but I think Niblack comes back. I think Niblack is set to compete for a starting job. But this guy's kind of what Niblack you hope will be. And then you've got Jordan Washington, who redshirted this year. You've got a couple of talented incoming freshmen, including Nick Townsend, who I think will need some time, especially since he's not going to be here in the spring. But long-term wise, it feels like he's going to be a potential impact player there. But they really like Jordan Washington as well. You bring in Claire, and I think it definitely gives you a couple of things. It gives you immediate coverage at that position going into next year. That if the light switch comes on for Niblack, fantastic. If it doesn't, well, you've got a guy that caught 600 plus yards worth of balls this season, and one of the first guys that Texas clearly ID'd and made an effort for in the portal. So I think they wasted no time there. I also think then he serves as a bridge to these young players. So if maybe Jordan Washington is ready next year, or maybe he needs another 12 months. Maybe Nick Townsend is ready to go, or maybe he's a true freshman who will miss the spring, will have had limited amount of reps early on, and will have an adjustment process. So maybe we're still looking at a position that's got some really good young talent on it, but it won't be ready in 2025. Bringing this guy in makes it so that the pressure on those players to step up, I think, is muted a little bit. So I'm a big Max Clare fan. I think that he would immediately upgrade the position based on what it looks like going into 2025 if they can land a commitment. And I had somebody last night say, just like with the punter, they have their fingers crossed that Claire will leave town a Longhorn. In the portal, almost one of the worst things that can happen is a guy leaves your campus uncommitted, because then he goes to the next campus, and then you can't sit tight because you do need to find a tight end. And then, so it's also one of the things when we talk about Singleton, he's scheduled to visit Texas on Monday. Will he make it? Will the schools that he visits today, tomorrow, Sunday, will they say, hey, what's it going to take to make you say yes? And sometimes that happens. It reminds me of, there was a kid that transferred out of UNLV a couple of years ago, Jacoby Windman, who was an edge player. And you got to remember, Texas didn't have Colin Simmons. They didn't have a number of the guys. This was a couple of years ago. They really wanted Windman, but he set a visit to Michigan State before the visit to Texas, and then he never made it to the visit to Texas. Now, he ended up not being a really good player for Michigan State. I just bring this up as an example of, it's the first one that comes to mind where Texas is on the visit schedule, but because they were at the back end of the visit schedule, they ended up never getting the visit. So the best thing that you can do in the portal is get a guy in right when you want him immediately. If it's delayed for any reasons at all, you somewhat run a risk.
So, Paul, I see your super chat. We'll get to it in a second. So then theoretically, if obviously they just did what they needed to do with Bo Meester, the punter, sounds like you would tell them to do the same thing with Claire. Would you say the same for Singleton, the Georgia Tech receiver? Would you say whenever he walks onto your campus, make sure you get it done before he walks out?
To me, it comes down to the finances. I don't know. I know what it was alleged to have looked like, that we're talking about a guy that was running in the $1.52 million for a 1-year deal, 1 year and go. He's a true sophomore, if I'm not mistaken. He just finished up. Maybe he redshirted. I missed it, but I know he's only played 2 seasons. Good seasons in both, 700 plus yards, both as a freshman and a sophomore. If he's the guy that everybody thinks he is, then he's going to play this season and be out. The quote that I was given earlier in the week. So is it outdated? I don't know. Sometimes I get told things in 48 hours, things look different. This is kind of one of those. Earlier in the week, I was told we can't sign Singleton and keep this team together. Felt pretty emphatic.
Yeah, that sounds pretty distinct, right? I can't do this and save my marriage. Oh, stop. We're good. We're done. We're leaving this Vegas casino because Bruce just said that. Let's go.
But I think this is how I would think of it if I was watching the show right now. What's the best way for me to explain this so that everybody kind of understands? For the most part, the top end of the salary structure at Texas has been about $750. I think that's $750-ish. It's probably Anthony Hill. It's probably Colin Simmons. It's probably everybody. It was probably Kelvin Banks this year. Now, maybe some of those guys are legitimately name, image, and likeness guys that they can go above that. A guy like Quinn Ewers hasn't been restricted by what Texas has tried to do from a maintenance standpoint of. But if you give Singleton, let's just say he takes a discount and agrees to come for 1.25, everybody on the roster will know that he got the 1.25. All these kids show each other their contracts. Professional sports is a little bit like this too. We know everybody's business. They tell us the contracts. So it's like, you know how much a guy's getting, you know his roster bonuses, you know how much the team saves if they cut him by certain dates. Like, it shouldn't work that way in college football, except all of these guys show each other their contracts.
Yep.
So if Singleton were to get 1.25, I promise you Anthony Hill is going to make his way. Hey, just curious, because I read on Twitter, I read on Orange Bloods, I heard you were going to get $2 million. Did you get $2 million? And he might not. I didn't get $2 million. I did get 1.25. At which point, Anthony Hill is going to go, I just was named second team All-America by Walter Camp. By the way, congratulations to Anthony Hill. Somehow Danny Stutzman also listed above him on the Walter Camp All-America team. I don't know who Stutzman or his family slept with. I don't know. I don't know how it happened. But
he's haunting that dude. That's
that
crazy.
guy literally didn't need to do anything this year, and he still was named over Anthony Hill on every team. But hey, Oklahoma's defense was so badass this year that it totally feels justified.
Jalen Milroe got 1,000 votes. People don't tell you that. That's the reason. He got 1,000 votes for Stutzman.
The issue is every really good player on your team now knows that their deal's not the best deal. And like, you're just going to have a locker room full of guys that are going to say, I was a 12, 13 game starter for you last year. I'm better at my position than this guy is at his position. Imagine if Matthew Golden came back, decided I want to come back for one more season. And you sign a guy from Georgia Tech whose numbers were inferior to yours, but he got over $1 million. Like, if you were Matthew Golden and you did come back, where's the start place for the negotiation? It's what that guy got.
Yep.
It's like, hey, You don't have to pay me more than Singleton, but you got to pay me what you paid Singleton.
Yeah.
And when you have a roster of 85 players, it's just – so I get where my sourcing on this was coming from. And I have no doubt that they meant what they said. They almost certainly still mean it today. But you know who my source wasn't? Steve Sarkisian. My source, not Steve Sarkisian on this.
Yeah.
And Steve Sarkisian may simply look at this as, well, he's a badass player. Like, I want some of that. And he may have people who are like, well, coach, complicated. And all he may see is like, hey, he's really good. So these things are fluid because it's possible that Steve Sarkisian could just say, hey, every year we want to get the best player in the portal. And if we think this is the single best player in the portal, like, hey, man, let's go do it. At which point everybody else in the program will, because think about Michael Fasusi. In August, they didn't want to pay the money. In December, they were doing aggressive fundraising on like right up to signing day to make sure that, hey, if we got to give Fasusi or Justice Terry or both crazy amounts of money, let's make sure we can do it. So I think it is important that sometimes when I say some stuff like this, we all need to realize the portal's crazy, man. And just because Texas may not be able to afford him in the sense that the impact it would have on the rest of the roster doesn't mean that the coaches necessarily, all of them think that way. I think Sarkisian is the head and leads the body. But there will be people who will say, I don't know how we do that. And it'll be interesting to see if it gets to Monday, if they can get him on campus, what does it look like? What does it sound like? Can Texas cut through some BS and say, well, yeah, you're getting a $2 million offer, but that's not even real. That includes jersey sales. And do you know how many jerseys you'd have to sell in order to make $300,000 off of jerseys? And they'll show them the math and they'll go, so it's $2 million, but it's not really $2 million, which is what happened with Jordan Addison when he transferred from Pitt. When he went to USC, they were offering him a bigger number. And Texas is like, well, we're not going to give you that. But what we will give you is real. It doesn't have to fall from a tree. You don't have to plant seeds into the ground so that a magic beanstalk can grow out of it and climb up to the money tree. No, our money is real. And it's in a contract, and you can take it to the bank that you're going to get paid what we said you're going to get paid. I do think Texas has that going for them. And look, the other thing about Singleton is, again, can't stress this enough. That guy's got an agent. If you wanted to raise the price, you're visiting Texas, you're visiting Oregon, you're visiting maybe Ohio State. You want all of the schools to know, oh God, he's going to Texas? Because they're all going to assume that Texas will do whatever it takes, which means these other schools feel like they've got to do whatever it takes. So I think it's whoever his agent is, because he's got all of the schools that spend money on NIL in the process. I think it's fantastic. Another thing, did you have another question, or can I make a point real quick?
You can make a point. We got some super chats and stuff to do, but sure, whatever.
The other thing that I thought was really interesting, and like, give Max Olson a lot of credit because I'll probably steal this point and talk about it in a column I write this week. You know where a lot of the players are coming from in the portal? Bottom feeder SEC teams. It's a whole lot of Oklahoma. It's a whole lot of Mississippi State. It's a whole lot of Arkansas.
Yeah, I saw Arkansas on top of a list at one point of the early wave of guys.
It is one of those deals that it feels like if guys have SEC experience and they've proven to be good players, get the hell out of Dodge. And, Sam Pittman was asked, does Arkansas have an NIL problem because they've lost so many players? That was an interesting answer for Pittman to give because he said it's not NIL. They just don't want to play here anymore, which is its own form of like a bad answer.
Well, and it's not the SEC, but Catch, why would this Claire cat want to leave Purdue? because they're horrible.
Yeah.
Maybe, right? Maybe he just doesn't want to go over. They didn't win a conference game this year.
No. And the same thing with the defensive tackle that's on campus today.
Right. They went
If you had options, why would you spend it at a place where you're going to get your head kicked in?
They went 0-9, and is part of the reason Nick Scorton decided to go to College Station that he knew what Purdue was in for this year.
Well, but he also came closer to home too. So
no, that's true. You're right. He was a local guy, and there was another story there. But I'm sure that part didn't hurt when he thought about, well, am I leaving a Big Ten champion? And he's like, oh, hell no. No, I'm not. So maybe that was part of it,
Let
too.
me give you these numbers real quick, okay? Of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Of the top 7 schools in America that thus far of the Power 4 conferences that have had the most players leave, Arkansas and Mississippi State are tied at second with 24.
Damn.
They've lost an entire recruiting class.
That's incredible.
Kentucky's right behind them with 21.
Okay.
Oklahoma and A&M both have 19. Now, A&M's a little bit of an outlier there, although I would be concerned if I was an Aggie that the company that you're keeping as a whole is Arizona, Arkansas, Mississippi State, Kentucky, Purdue, and Oklahoma. What do all of those programs have in common? Mid at best.
I was going to say at the top for some of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the lesson learned is, Chad, next year, we probably get a pretty good idea of where the talent, Texas and others will be shopping from, who finishes in the bottom third of the SEC. Because I think those players don't want to stick around.
Yeah, it's fair. I think it's fair. We got a couple super chats that we are going to get to. We got buy or sell coming up as well. Before we close up, let me give you another idea for what you can do this weekend. There are 2 massive NFL games that happen at the exact same time. Philly and Pittsburgh, and the Detroit Buffalo game. They happen at the same time. Why don't you head over to TCH Social Austin, find out what we've been talking about. Look, we got the watch party coming on the 21st for Texas and Clemson, but go give it a try this weekend. Go watch some NFL. Have some of that bad beat bacon, and that big old screen in the lower right, that's an 8x4, and each of the screens is 55 inches big. It's incredible. They do have the Sunday ticket, so they're going to dial up all those games for you on a Sunday. Go out there, tell them we said hey, and yes, remember that we'll be out there on the 21st for Texas.
Is that last week's game?
That is the watch party from Texas, Georgia, correct.
Good crowd. I think we had a little bit more for the game before that, but the audience is picking up.
It was a nice group. ATX Bates, Barb's 10, Blake the super producer, Jason Sukamel, and my wife are all in that picture somewhere. Also, we remind you, if you like to play cards, but you just can't get to a TCH right now, head over to the app, hijackpoker.com. You go there, then you'll find out how to download the app onto whatever device you want. Use the code OB20 until January 1st to get $20 of free play. Check it out.
Hey, can I give you an Eric Singleton update real quick before we do anything else? I know we've got the super chats. I'm looking at On3 and their guy, they're one of their top reporters, Pete Nakos. Excuse me if I butchered that. Here's what he wrote. Eric Singleton is coming off an Auburn visit and has arrived at Ole Miss. There's momentum behind the Tigers, but he also has visits planned at Texas and Miami for next week. Telling you, that dude is letting Auburn and Ole Miss know.
Yep.
Fuck around and find out.
He's letting them know. This is old school recruiting. This is, you can't let him get on campus.
You can't.
If you're Lane Kiffin and you really want him, if you're Hugh Freeze and you really want him, you can't let him get on the plane to Austin, period. You can't,
because Miami has a rep for, you know what I mean? Like the 2 schools for next week are schools that have big NIL reputations, and so does Auburn. But we know Ole Miss will.
Did you say?
I bet that kid ends up at Ole Miss.
Did you say he's hitting Texas and Miami next week? Supposedly.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's a threat. That is a good threat. Let me guess. Oregon's next Friday, right?
Hey, if he gets out of that Miami visit without somebody giving him the offer that he wants, Oregon can be next.
Right? I got Phil Knight on speed dial. Did I not let you know that? Well, and like you said earlier, this is all about, I mean, it turns into a perception game on certain levels. Unlike an Isaiah Bond who had gotten to show off at Alabama, this is a guy who's at Georgia Tech. The bragging he can do is he has met and broken some of Calvin Johnson's stuff at Georgia Tech. But any football fan would tell you what Georgia Tech was running when Calvin Johnson was there. So there's all these things of perception games you can play. But to your point earlier, Eric Singleton's people are going to play this like he's they're going to play this like he's Evan Stewart and like he's Isaiah Bond.
Rightfully so. That's why for anybody that ever wonders, why do guys hire agents? Why not just let your dad handle it?
Yeah, because they're paid hype men and women. They are paid to hype your ass up. That's what it's about. Let's grab a couple super chats, and we got a couple other good chats as well. Paul with a $4.99. 7 is the badass number for LSU DBs. Oh, yeah, Dell putting stuff. Yeah, so that might not be a great idea for Texas. You're right. 2, prime on prime, Nicole Eggert hotter than Alyssa Milano. That's a sell.
Really?
Sell for me. That's a sell. I'm a huge Alyssa Milano guy. Sell. I'll go Milano all the way there.
I mean, but isn't one a Baywatch model and the other one not?
I mean, if you want to compare resumes that way, sure. I'm just telling you what my heart says. My heart says
I will say that
that's a sell.
If we don't go prime on prime, if we go like duration versus duration.
Oh, Lord, that's Alyssa Milano by a mile.
It is.
A mile.
But yeah. I think in her prime, Nicole Eggert, it's close. But she's a model. She was like a swimsuit model.
No doubt. That's true. That's an interesting distinction. Was she a swimsuit model or was she just in Baywatch? Or was she both?
Know. You're asking me to know more about Nicole Eggert than I'm really
that's
prepared to go with.
Paul, how dare
you were in Baywatch, you were a swimsuit model.
Paul, how dare you take us down that path? Come on now. All right. Let's see.
She's
this
just
is
an actress,
the other.
By the way.
What's that?
Her Wikipedia page does not refer to her as a model.
Okay, there you go. ATX Bait, Super Chat, $4.99. Just a cool idea. One home game a year. Players get to wear retired numbers. Arch 10, Anthony Hill 60, CJ 20. Just an ode to Texas football history. ATX Bates, I think there's a lot better ways to do that. You're adding.
I don't hate it, but I also don't like the idea that for an entire game, everybody's just in different numbers.
You're going to create confusion that you don't want to create. That's too much confusion. You're going to just confuse a situation just to say we're paying tribute to Earl Campbell. There's a lot of other ways to do that. You can't do it that way. I think in a non-conference game, if you want to play around with like some uniform tweaks and things like that, one time maybe, but Texas fans are reluctant to do that. You go tell them somebody gets to wear Vince's number and Colt's number and Earl's number and Rick, they're going to flip out. So I wouldn't go down that road with it.
Hey, by the way, Nicole Eggert was in the Miss Universe pageant.
Is that right?
It was crowned Little Miss California Universe.
Go ahead, Nicole Eggert. Hey,
so not a model, but kind of a model.
Hey, I spent some time with Charles in charge. I know. I wanted her in charge of me. All right. Michael says Brad Spence is a damn good player too. Go sign that dude if you can. Catch, you reacted a little bit when I said Spence's name earlier. Give me a little more. You were just talking about Arkansas guys that have gone into the portal. Here's one of them, Brad Spence. Pretty damn. I agree with Michael. Pretty damn good player.
Very good player. Very David Benda-ish. I think that they don't necessarily need an impact starter, but you'd like to have somebody that could start in a pinch and at worst is going to be part of your rotation. I don't know that Texas definitely has somebody in line to replace Benda. If I'm not mistaken, Spence is like 6'2", 235. Like he's a big boy. He's a big boy like David Benda's a big boy. And I think that in the SEC, when you need to go to like a heavy a heavy, defensive look. You need somebody with a little bit more ass in their britches. Spence would be a good hire. The thing you say about LaFau is you wouldn't say that guy's got a bunch of ass in his britches. He's like a leaner, slender guy who's is a playmaker, but every once in a while you do need to have a downhill thumper. I think Spence would be a really good addition. And I think Texas knows that it has a linebacker need. I don't think they'll mess around. If they can get Spence, I think they feel really good about going into next season. Anthony Hill and Leon LaFau are your starting linebackers. You know that Ty Anthony Smith has kind of created a role for himself as kind of a nickel guy. And they need a guy that come in and be the David Benda guy. And I think it's real simple. If they can get Spence, I think they've done that. They may even upgrade. I think Brad Spence at this point in his career is at least a wash with Benda. And if you think that Spence has better football to give, this is a guy, you might be able to upgrade that position from this year. And I think David Benda has been a really good player, but I think Brad Spence is a good player.
And remember, fellas, if you've got a really good opening line that involves the amount of ass in a pair of pants, delivery is key. Delivery is key. Go over it in your head a few times about how you're going to say it, because it could be an all-timer. It could also end badly.
By the way, breaking news, Chad, and talk about, sometimes these just aren't surprises. Justice Finkley officially in the portal.
Justice Finkley. Okay, so and as long as we're there, let's clarify one other thing. As of this moment, Sadir Mitchell, we talked about Sadir Mitchell being in the portal. Then there was a story about, no, wait a second, Sadir Mitchell maybe never entered the portal. So Justice Finkley reportedly is now in the portal. Sadir Mitchell, just kind of got to wait and see.
As of last night, he's back.
He's back. Okay. As of right now,
is that forever? Maybe. Like I had a source last night that was pretty incredulous about the whole thing. I was told he wasn't offered more money. This is still a kind of, he literally, it seems like, told Hayes Fawcett of On3 that he was getting into the portal but hadn't yet done it, and then the next day changed his mind. Right now, it looks like he's going to stay, but the portal window's open for a while, and I think we're just going to have to wait and see kind of how things go from there.
Yeah. All right. So again, Justice Finkley into the portal. No massive shock there. We did have.
Honestly, I was a little surprised it didn't happen on Monday.
Yeah. Right. No, it's one that we were kind of expecting maybe to see that name at some point. Obviously, best of luck to Justice Finkley finding a place that works for him outside of once he gets out of the portal. Pete did throw in earlier back-to-back Outland Trophy winners. I don't know if we said that earlier. Thank you, Pete. Yes, Tavondre Sweat and then Kelvin Banks, and they let Tavondre Sweat be the one to officially tell Banks. If y'all watch the ceremony, that's really cool. Yeah. Throw it on the FaceTime. Let him be the one to officially tell him. That was great. Congrats again to Kelvin Banks. And yes, so Texas has back-to-back Outland winners. And then, of course, back to the Barron Award, they had back-to-back Thorpe winners with Ross and Huff. And now they've got their third Thorpe winner. So a lot of awards for Texas. And as we mentioned earlier, Banks is the only guy ever to win the Outland and the Lombardi to go to Texas. That is big. Brad with a $9.99 just jumped in. Agree, disagree. We'd be better off with a 4-team playoff at the conference level, and the winners would be invited to a national playoff level. Top 4 plus 2 additional conference champs from group of 5.
I'll pass.
Yeah, right now I would disagree. Brad, all I've ever said is you have identify the number of portals that you respect and give me that many spots or more in your playoff. They've done that. Let's see how it plays out. Probably need to think of that reseeding thing that we've talked about. Although if you're a Texas fan, you're digging it right now because you need to try to take advantage of this 5-seed path. But I disagree with that. I kind of like the way it's set up this year, and we need to see it. We need to see it play out. Next week's just going to be early Christmas, man. These games that really matter, and it's not turning. You're not just immediately going to crappy bowl games. It's fantastic. All right, so we cleaned off the super chats. If you want to get us a super chat, we will get it right to the top of the list. We got buy or sell coming up. I want to get Catch's thoughts on the SEC schedule thing because we haven't talked about that yet. We will do that, and we will get your super chats if they come in. Right now, earlier we did the Portal Combat Holiday Edition. How about AV Consultations Holiday Edition this weekend while you're sitting around? Maybe you're thinking about a new setup for Christmas. Get it done. Here you go.
Hi, this is Tom McKay, owner of Audiovisual Consultations, and all of us at Audiovisual would like to wish you and your family a happy holiday season. This time of year can get a little hectic, so we want to remind you to relax, enjoy the season with your family and friends, and give us a call at 512-255-8678 for all of your home entertainment needs. This is my favorite time of the year. I love the holidays, the music, the decorations, the presents, the whole darn thing. So this year I'm asking all you listeners to help make this a special holiday for everyone. Smiles are contagious and free, so let's give them away like the government gives away your money. Let's high-five strangers on the street. Hold the door for people behind us. Tip your servers more than they've ever been tipped before. Give to a charity, or hell, give to a bunch of charities. If someone does a good job, tell them they did a good job. Pat someone on the butt. Sing in public places just because it feels good. And as always, hug your kids until they beg you to stop. Watch some games with your friends and make love to your wife or your husband. I know there's some women listening too. You can still give us a call at 512-255-8678 if you'd like to get some cool electronics, but more importantly, have a great holiday season and a
All right, so just a quick recap. We started the show with acquisition for Texas as Mr. Bouwmeester, Jack Bouwmeester, the Australian punter that had been at Utah, before that Michigan State, if you're following his whole story. He has now come out of the portal to Texas, and then we've kind of wrapped up the show in a way with another guy into the portal for Texas, and that is Justice Finkley has entered the portal. So all that defensive line talk we've been having, it's, it is all lining up as I know Catch and a lot of people thought that it would. Catch, anything else we need to hit before buy or sell?
I just want to give a shout out to Justice Finkley and his parents.
Okay.
Like class family, class kid. I think one of the worst parts of this job is having to talk about kids you like as human beings not being good enough football players for a program like Texas. That, the standards are so high to get on the field, and Finkley didn't quite meet those. And you always kind of could see that this was going to happen. That, I felt like before he played his first game, you kind of knew. You see him in practice just a little bit, and you'd go, a little bit of a tweener, not going to give them off the edge what they want. He's a solid football player, but he's not dynamic. And I always hated the conversation that would have to come up with Justice Finkley because his mom might be watching the show, or his dad or family members might be watching the show. And it's tough to talk about a really good kid in football ways that are so impersonal. It's like, oh, Justice Finkley probably going to have to transfer because he's not good enough. And, it is, I think, for me, the least fun part. Like Johnny Barron's another example. Like, it's not fun to talk about a guy last year and go, well, he didn't play well enough to go into the NFL draft and didn't have a good year. It sounds like you're like shitting on the dude. And it's like, well, no, we have to talk about what happened and didn't happen. Otherwise, let's just fold up Orange Bloods Live and everybody can just be fans and everybody's great. And
don't do that.
In this new era, the portal era especially, Chad, there are real consequences for not being good enough.
Yeah.
In the past, you might just finish out your career, get your degree. And I was like, oh, that guy didn't quite live up to expectations. In 2024, going into 2025, when that's happening, guys are going to get the hell out. And I think that's probably along with the portal, and maybe the thing that, I think we all would like the idea of, well, look, let him get his Aggie ring. Let him get his T ring. Let him walk out of here with something. And that's not an insignificant thing for either school. And when situations like this happen, it's really disappointing that the bare minimum of what you'd want for this guy in investing that much time and heart and soul is to at least come away with a degree that forever marries him to the school that he was at. And we don't see that a lot in 2024. And, it's the downside, I think, of the portal.
Am I right in saying he was a state of Alabama guy?
Correct.
Do I have that right on Finkley? Yeah,
Yes.
I'm interested to see where he ends up. I love the name from the moment I heard the name. I thought it was great, but I'm glad to hear about. And I've heard good things from you and others about him, the family, and everything. So he's a guy I'll root for wherever he ends up. I want to see. I want to see that like come to fruition, especially if the family is awesome and he's awesome, a good person, and then he's got a badass name and can make a name for himself. Let's do it. All the best to Justice Finkley trying to figure out what works for him. All right, Catch, buy or sell time. You want to go first or second?
I'll go second.
All righty, let's start here. Just officially buy or sell number one. Quinn goes to the NFL after this playoff run.
Buy. Yeah, that's definitely going to happen. I think where it could change is if something happened in one of the playoff games and he got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think anybody's anticipating, nobody's anticipating that he suffers the Carson Beck injury, right? Like,
yeah,
don't have an injury that would potentially impact your ability to work out for draft workouts and stuff like that. But barring something really unforeseen, then I think, yes, he will go pro.
All right, Catch, I'm recycling 3 that I gave the crowd yesterday because I just need to know what you think, including this one. Buy or sell number 2. You have a side that you pull for in Army Navy.
Sell.
Okay. You just watch the game and check
sometimes.
It out. Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. There's usually like a quarterback on each team that I'll decide which quarterback I like, and then I'll root for the team that has the quarterback I like. And every year, sometimes one school has the quarterback I like, and then the next year it doesn't. So it goes back and forth. It's not like I'm an Army or a Navy guy.
Well, no disrespect to the Navy quarterback, but like Brian Jones and I talked about yesterday, Bryson Daly of Army is from Abernathy, Texas, north of Lubbock. So I'm rooting for the West Texas kid at quarterback if I have to root for anybody, right?
Sometimes it's the thing about that game is in the pregame, they'll let you know just how awesome a couple of these guys are.
Right.
And you're just like, good God, man, I couldn't be that impressive as a human being if they gave me 2,000 years. And this guy's like top of his class. He's, it's one thing after another. And it's a cool thing about this game. There's some good apples.
Yeah, it's awesome. Again, America's game kicks off at 2:00 tomorrow on CBS. Catch the game that's not America's game. Buy or sell number 3. Carolina is favored by 3 now. That means money's coming in on the Panthers versus the Cowboys. And you think the Panthers win this game?
Sell. I don't care enough to have an opinion.
I like that. That's a good ejection from the buy or sell.
I haven't given that game any thought. I don't want to give that game any thought. I will be rooting for Carolina to beat Dallas. By the way, God damn it, we can't have nice things. We haven't talked about the DeMarvion Overshown injury. Feels like the only thing we had all year to be happy about.
Yeah, it was terrible. It was terrible.
Screw you, football gods.
Oh, the Brooks one was bad enough for Texas fans, but then for Overshown, and in both cases, it's guys dealing with multiple injuries. In what Brooks's case, it's the same leg, and with Overshown, it's the opposite leg from what he just came off of. Just terrible. It was all. It's just ugh.
No, and they both happened within 36 hours of each other. It sucks.
And they're supposed to be playing each other this week. The only good news there, Catch, is DeMarvion doesn't make that trip, does he? After that injury? Like, did they put him on a plane after that? I'm guessing no.
He does not make the trip.
Right, I'm guessing that's a no. So they don't even get to see each other. Like, that just sucks. It just sucks all the way around. Carolina and Dallas, they kick sometime on Sunday, I think. I don't even know when. Probably a noon kick. God help us. They ought to kick that thing at 7:30 in the morning, honestly.
All right, game in England so that we could just wake up on Sunday morning and it's over with. And we go, what happened in the game? Oh, Carolina won 9-7. Oh, glad I didn't watch.
So Catch, I am proud of myself because I came up with a hotter than that involves Stacy Keebler that I think's a bit of a battle. But before that, let's go to a birthday. Buy or sell number 4. Frank Sinatra would have been 109 yesterday. Prime on Prime. One night in Vegas. You'd rather see Frank than Garth, Celine, or Adele.
Bye. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's Frank. You know, some things to have been able to see are for like just on a different level. So to be able Prime on Prime one night in Vegas.
Yeah.
Imagine the gangsters that might be in the room that night, that just from a people watching standpoint, you get to enjoy.
Yeah. If it was Prime on Prime one night at Texas Stadium, as I said yesterday, I'd go Garth.
Yes.
But I don't want to, if my one-time Prime Garth, it's not in Vegas. It'd be somewhere. It'd be at a massive stadium. Somewhere.
Where's your Prime on Prime Adele? Like, where would you want to see Adele?
Easy. Like Antone's.
You know what I was about to say?
The smallest room possible.
I was about to say Continental Club.
Yep. The smallest place I could get, and she'd shake the rafters out of the place.
If you wrote down pound for pound one night at the Continental Club.
Whoo!
Give me Adele. Can you imagine?
That's chills right there. That's good. Not that Garth at the Continental Club wouldn't be good, but Adele there would be excellent. That would be good.
You just made me smile.
Yeah, exactly. All right. I'm hoping this one makes you smile, Catch, because I do think it's a bit of a battle. I don't think you have to Google the second name, but maybe you do. This is a wrestling hottie, hotter than.
Well, I'm already selling it's a wrestling hottie against Stacy Keibler. I'm just telling you, there's nothing that's going to make me buy.
And everybody in the chat ultimately agreed with you yesterday. But just for the sake of the argument, Prime on Prime, Stacy Keibler, hotter than Jade Cargill.
Oh, yeah. That's a buy. Yeah.
Wow. Stacy Keibler is a powerful force if you do that quickly.
Jade, because you didn't give me a thought. You did not make me think twice. I think Jade is a sexy woman. But come on, what are we doing here?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Here? I think every wrestling fan that knows their stuff knows that's a man's game right there. But apparently it's not. I think it is, but everybody. I didn't get one person to take Jade yesterday. Stacy Keibler is that impressive.
Because it's ridiculous.
And we also had somebody throw in that they saw Keibler at the Texas-Georgia game, and she looked fantastic and all that good stuff. So shout out to Stacy.
She's immersing herself in Austin, Texas culture.
She is. We love that about her. Shout out to Stacy and Jade and all the great female wrestlers out there. All right, Catch. That's what I got. What do you think?
Buy or sell number one. You are optimistic about what your Aggies are going to do in the portal.
Optimistic.
Optimistic they emerge better than they were. Yeah,
I guess it's a buy. I mean, I guess you kind of have to be optimistic.
What else are you going to do if not optimistic?
Yeah, right. Like, because last week on the Outsiders, I did nothing but pick unders for games, and it ended up feeling awful. So instead of doing that, let's feel more of an upbeat. But yeah, I'll trust. I keep saying it. I don't know if it's going to be real good, but it's real. I think there'll be some real things in the portal. Hopefully, it'll feel better and it'll feel like a progression. Because that's what they need after 8-4. What's it going to be? 9-4 or 8-5? It needs to feel like it's taken a step forward. It doesn't need to feel, stuck in the mud in terms of acquisition.
Buy or sell number two. You have limits to what you will allow yourself to watch when it comes to the NFL. And last night, the Rams and the 49ers were right at it. You refused to engage in the touchdownless game. Maybe you saw 2 plays, but you didn't sit down and watch that thing.
Sell. We watched. Sell. We watched for 2 reasons. One, my wife is in a pick'em contest every week. She had taken I told her to take the Rams. She took the Niners. So she wanted to watch the whole thing. And I had 2 prize picks. Shout out to Alex Dunlap because they both hit. I had 2 prize picks in play, and I wanted to see how that played out. So I did check it out.
Prize picks will make you do some things you're not proud of.
It will. And I would like to thank Alex Dunlap for counseling me towards 2 lesses. I always do mores in prize picks. He motioned me towards 2 lesses in that game, and they both hit. So when I turned that game on, Catch, and I saw rain, I was so excited because I thought, well, here we go. The Prize Picks may not hit, and they did not. So it was good.
Buy or sell number 3, Kelvin Banks, best Texas tackle in your lifetime.
That's got to be a buy. I'm just going to give him his love.
We don't feel like we're being
I don't think it's
of the moment.
Nah, I mean, to a degree, but, and I get that those awards haven't always been around. I get that. I do. But just based on everything we've seen, man, I'll give him the love and say, yeah. I'm not there's not a name right now. Because remind me, at Texas, was Dan Neal a tackle or guard? He was a guard, wasn't he?
Yep.
Yeah. If Dan Neal had been a tackle, maybe that's because I'm like you. I hold him in high regard, but I'll say bye. It's Banks. Congrats to the young man.
Buy or sell number 4, late edition. I'm asking, this is a buy or sell. This is a late addition to quote of the year in sports.
Okay.
Scott Boras, when asked if the Yankees were the runner-up in the Juan Soto free agency sweepstakes, quote, when you're at the wedding, you don't talk about the bridesmaids, end quote.
Well played. The devil getting a comment in at the end of the year.
I love it.
Well played, Satan. Well played. That's like that's sort of a different way to talk about what lions don't talk about lambs or whatever the thing. I've never heard that one. When you're at the wedding, you don't talk about the bridesmaid. Damn. I know Soto at his press conference said this did not come down to Mets versus Yankees. He did not want to make it seem like that's all it was for him. And I guess Boras wants to do the same thing. That's funny.
And finally, buy or sell number 5. I was going to do a hotter than, but I can't. I'm in between thoughts. Hold on.
Okay.
I want to make sure. Okay. Buy or sell number 5, prime on prime, hotter than.
Yes.
Stacy Keibler.
Oh, good Lord.
Hotter than Aphrodite.
Wow. This is a serious, that's man's game. Man's game. This is a man's game and a God's game at the same time. There aren't many of those.
One is considered the most beautiful and sexy WWE entertainer that ever lived. The other is considered the most beautiful goddess in Greek theology.
Okay. With all due respect,
if you need to do a Google search, Aphrodite sexy, to see what pictures come up.
No, I don't need to, and here's why. With all due respect to Aphrodite, I don't know what her ring entrance looks like. I'm buying. I'm going Stacy Keibler. The ring entrance goes a long way with me, and it is so legendary. I think it might even exceed the god status of Aphrodite. So I'm going to go with Stacy Keibler.
I'm looking at photos of sexy Aphrodite on Google, and they're not Stacy Keibler.
There you go. There it is. So you think it's right to buy?
It is right to buy. Keebs still has the legs and all of the things that Keebs always has. She still has.
See, again, this was the test. If Ketch won't go Aphrodite, and we still have not found any woman in the history of wrestling that he would even consider. Like, it's an insult. If, like, I really thought I had kind of an inspired moment where I'm like, well, let me just throw Jade in there and see what happens. He threw her away like it was meaningless. Meaningless. So
you was kind of meaningless. She's not Stacy Keibler.
Like, you couldn't do there's no Trish, Sable, Lita. There's nothing. There's nothing you could do to make
Trish
react.
I love the women that you're talking about.
There's nothing you could do to make him pick the other.
No, there's nothing. Nothing.
Not one thing.
Not one thing.
I even tried the Fabulous Moolah on a Friday. Out of nowhere. Well, didn't even work.
That one would make me stop and think for a second.
That's right. Then you take a second on that one. You got to take a second.
Moolah was quite the wildcat back in the day.
Oh, God. In every way. The bad ways, the good ways, the illegal ways, the legal ways, all ways. In every way.
My body's so bruised, Moolah.
My Lord, my Lord. All right, we do have a super chat that will take us way off topic here. So before we do that, let me give everybody one more idea. Maybe somewhere you might want to hang out this weekend. I showed you this picture earlier. Let's show you the new setup out at Hayes City Store. So this is the Ice House, and they've closed off that back wall. The other walls are still open, so you get the great breeze and you get to see the trees and all that. But they've added these screens on the back wall, and so it's just even better. It's the place you wanted to go anyway. Now it's better. Go out there, have the chicken fried steak or the pizza or a burger or the enchiladas. The great drinks are out there for you. You're just going to have a great time. Tell Travis, Tamara, and the crew that we said hello. Go see them at Hayes City Store and check out the new Ice House that they've got taken care of. They're working for you. Always trying to make it better out there. All right, Catch. Way off topic here, but I know you and I will have our thoughts. Mike, $5 super chat. Top 5 Christmas songs on December.
Chad, I'm gonna let you. I have a very definite opinion on this, but I want you to go first. I don't want to take away from you,
Mike. I am one to probably go down a little different path than some, so let's get these out of the way before Catch goes to maybe. I don't know if Catch is going to go more traditional, but here we go. Off the top of my head, Mike, let's go. Mistress for Christmas from AC/DC always makes me emotional. Let's go Bruce Robinson and Kelly Willis. Please, Daddy, don't get drunk this Christmas. Always one that gets me. Swiss Colony Beef Log from Eric Cartman on the South Park Christmas album has always been a huge favorite of mine. Also on the South Park Christmas album, just Merry Effin' Christmas, a solid Christmas tune. And then I'm going to have to stay there and go with Mr. Hanky and Kenny, the most offensive song ever written, which is also on that Christmas album. It is priceless. Those would be the 5 that come into my mind immediately. Catch, what do you got?
Okay. I think the number one Christmas song of all time, I think, has become All I Want for Christmas Is You from Mariah Carey. That's
a big timer, yeah.
I honestly had never heard the song until I watched Love Actually and the little girl sings it.
Really?
I'd never heard the Mariah Carey version.
Okay.
I see the Love Actually song and I was like, that's a freaking awesome song. And that little girl, like, how cool is that scene? And then it was like, oh, well, that's a Mariah Carey joint.
Yeah, that's a great song.
And my son Hendrix loves that song so much. I'm convinced that he has the hots for Mariah Carey and just doesn't know it. And last year, I was like, Hendrix, do you find yourself wanting to hang out with Mariah Carey and not know why? And he denied. Number 2 for me, I'm probably going to go Last Christmas by Wham.
Solid.
I can't help it. I cannot help it.
Yeah,
this week, I was trying to explain to my kids George Michael, and we were listening to Last Christmas. This Christmas by Donny Hathaway is right there. And if you made me do away with the Mariah Carey, I would probably go This Christmas by Donny Hathaway as my favorite all-time number 1. You can get into, okay, it has to be in there. The Christmas Time Is Here by the Vince, the trio, the Charlie Brown Christmas song.
Oh, I got you. That's a good one.
I've only watched that cartoon 40 years now running, basically.
Like 7,000 times in your life, yeah.
And it makes me happy. When I hear it,
it does, yeah.
I think of Charlie Brown. It makes me smile. It makes me think about like the true value of Christmas.
Yeah. Every year, Catch, when we turn the Christmas lights on for the first time, my daughter says, Christmas time, every time. Every single time.
It's as simple as that. Sometimes it is as simple as that. There's another one, though, this week that I have been I can't stop listening to.
Okay.
It's a Luther Vandross joint.
Ooh, Luther Christmas. I don't know that I've ever listened to a Luther Christmas song. What is it?
And hold on, I'm having to look it up because I forgot which one it was. Like, I keep listening to it, and I've thought, God, what a great Christmas. I made my kids listen to it earlier today.
Mm-hmm.
But, I think it can't be number 5 if I can't remember the name of the song, but it's newly in my rotation.
Okay.
And I think it's Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas.
Oh, that's got to be good. Yeah.
It's just Luther being Luther. And it's like, oh my God, how could you have a top 5 list if Luther sings a song?
That's got to be good.
How can Luther not be in it?
Right. Luther going after that would be really good. Okay, that's good. Now I'm waiting for you to get to 5 before we throw in some suggestions from others. You got your 5. Okay.
That's my 5. I put Luther in the 5 as a the top 4 are the Mount Rushmore. They cannot be moved. It's Mariah's All I Want for Christmas. It's Christmas Time Is Here. It's This Christmas by Donny Hathaway. And Last Christmas by Wham.
Gotcha. Mike, thank you for this idea. Paul has jumped in with one of my wife's favorites too. The live Santa Claus is Coming to Town by Bruce Springsteen is pretty awesome. Catch, my wife would rather do pretty much anything than listen to Bruce Springsteen the rest of the year. She is not a Bruce fan. She is not into the boss at all. But when that song comes on, she will stop your world and make you listen. There's something about that song that it's weird to watch. Like, she doesn't like the man, but something about that song does it for her.
Can I give out just a few honorable mentions?
Mm-hmm.
Brenda Lee's Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree.
That's my wife's favorite Christmas song.
Jingle Bell Rock by Bobby Helms.
That's a good one. Yeah.
And what is the Santa Baby by Eartha Kitt.
Santa Baby. There are a lot of good Santa Babies. I like that song. That's solid. One of my favorites is off of the Bruce and Kelly Christmas album. Kelly Willis singing Santa Baby is sexy as hell.
I was about to say, I have not heard that, but it sounds sexy as hell just to hear you say it.
Just look it up. Listen. Oh, the way she crafts that one is so freaking good. But that's a great song. And also, like, it's sort of, I know over the years it's kind of been PC'd a little bit, but Baby It's Cold Outside is a really cool song when it's done well. And like Ray Charles is one of my favorite versions of that song, back and forth. But there's some great duet versions of Baby It's Cold Outside from over the years too.
I wish Whitney Houston had done a Christmas album. She never did.
That would have been a good idea.
Would have been a great album. All right, Chad, we got to go because I'm up against it.
Okay, gotta go. I'll get Ketch's thoughts on the new SEC schedule at some other point.
Please.
Thank you for liking, subscribing, getting your notifications. Up over 1,000 of you in there as we get ready to head out. Remember, Football with Friends at 6 o'clock tonight. Enjoy your weekend. Check out orangebloods.com for the very latest on all these portal visitors. We'll be back on Monday at noon talking Eric Singleton, Texas against Clemson, and a whole lot more. Uh-oh.
This is not true.
How dare you, JD?
But what I did do was pull up my top 10 Christmas songs list on Orange Bloods because I'd already answered this question.
I knew in my heart as soon as they asked, I'm like, well, he's done this on
I've done this. And so I just leaned. I didn't look up a top 100 list. I looked up my top 10 list, which didn't have the Luther song. That's the one I stumbled through because I couldn't remember which song Luther sings, but it wasn't a top 100 list. It was my Catch's top 10 list, which I might just recycle this weekend. Less work for me.
Yeah, there's another one. Ooh, another one off the South Park Christmas album. It's Hard to Be a Jew at Christmas. That's a great song. Go listen to that one. You'll get emotional. All right, we'll be back at noon on Monday. We'll talk all kinds of good stuff. Y'all have a good weekend. Thank you for the support.